a forward staging area in eastern Ukraine, 23-40 hours on a recent clear night. Temperature +11 Celsius with no wind. Cloudless sky providing excellent visibility for night operations. A Russian logistics and personnel staging compound housing supplies, vehicles and troops preparing for upcoming offensive operations. 1,473 personnel concentrated in compound. 847 infantry soldiers in tent encampments. 326 logistics personnel managing supply operations. 300 support staff. Compound contained critical supplies. 400 tons of ammunition. 200 vehicles including trucks and armored personnel carriers. 120 tons of food and equipment. 40,000 liters of fuel in portable containers. The staging area represented months of accumulated supplies and personnel assembled for major offensive operation, scheduled to commence within 72 hours. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones had been monitoring compound for 2 weeks. Thermal imaging showed personnel concentrations, vehicle parks, supply storage areas. Pattern analysis identified guard rotations, activity schedules, vulnerable periods. Intelligence assessment determined compound was inadequately defended. Minimal air defense, limited dispersal of supplies, concentration of personnel in flammable tent structures. Strike plan was developed using swarm of small drones carrying incendiary payloads to ignite fires across entire compound, creating catastrophic chain reaction of burning supplies and structures. 38 minutes after drone swarm arrived over compound, fires would consume 97% of compound area. 632 personnel would be dead from burns, smoke inhalation, or explosions. 473 would require hospitalization for severe burn injuries. 368 would survive with minor injuries. Supplies worth $57 million would be destroyed. The staging area that represented months of preparation would be eliminated in single night, preventing planned offensive operation. This happened days ago during period of clear weather enabling drone operations. Destroyed compound remains as burned wasteland. Strategic implications of vulnerability to mass drone incendiary attacks continue affecting force protection planning. This is what occurred during those 38 minutes when fire consumed compound. Small commercial drones have revolutionized modern warfare. Quadcopter drones costing hundreds of dollars can carry payloads of several kilograms, navigate autonomously using GPS, and deliver weapons with precision rivaling missiles costing millions. When employed in coordinated swarms, dozens or hundreds of drones create overwhelming effect, impossible to defend against, using traditional air defense systems designed for aircraft and missiles. Incendiary weapons create psychological terror beyond their physical destructive effect. Fire spreads uncontrollably, consuming everything combustible. Smoke causes suffocation and disorientation. Thermal radiation causes horrific burn injuries. Victims die slow, agonizing deaths or survive with permanent disfiguring injuries requiring years of treatment. International law restricts use of incendiary weapons against civilians, but permits use against military targets. Ukrainian forces developed drone swarm tactics specifically for attacking rear area targets. Small quadcopter drones carried thermite grenades, pyrotechnic devices burning at 3,000 degrees Celsius, producing molten iron slag. Thermite cannot be extinguished with water, only smothered by removing oxygen. Grenades were designed to penetrate tent fabric before detonating, ensuring maximum fire propagation inside structures. Compound occupied flat open terrain 2 kilometers from closest civilian settlement. Layout was organized but not optimally dispersed. Tent encampments housing soldiers occupied northern section, rows of large military tents, each housing 20 to 30 soldiers. Supply storage occupied central area, palletized ammunition, stacked equipment, vehicle parks. Logistics operations occupied southern section, fuel storage, maintenance areas, command facilities. Russian security was inadequate for threat environment. Air defense consisted of 2 Igla portable systems, shoulder-fired missiles effective against helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, but ineffective against small drones. Radar coverage was non-existent. Small drones have minimal radar cross-section, invisible to most military radars. Guards patrolled perimeter but had no capability to detect or engage drones operating at altitude. Ukrainian drone operators assembled swarm of 84 quadcopter drones. Each drone carried single thermite grenade weighing 800 grams. Total incendiary payload was 67 kilograms distributed across 84 delivery platforms. Drones were programmed with autonomous waypoints, targeting specific structures and areas within compound. Launch would be synchronized. All drones airborne simultaneously approaching from multiple directions, overwhelming defenses. At 23:00 hours, launch operations commenced from positions 20 kilometers from target. Drones lifted off in sequence within 90 seconds, creating aerial swarm. Flight path was programmed for low-altitude approach. Drones flew at 50 meters altitude below effective engagement altitude for portable air defense. Flight time was approximately 15 minutes, accounting for circuitous route avoiding detection. At 23:15, drone operators confirmed all 84 aircraft were airborne and maneuvering toward target. Telemetry showed normal operation, battery levels adequate, GPS navigation functioning, camera feeds operational. Swarm control software maintained formation with drones spaced to prevent collisions while concentrating arrival over target within narrow timeframe. Russian compound was settling for night. Guard posts were manned, but alertness was degraded late at night. Most personnel were in tents, sleeping or preparing for sleep. Logistics operations had ceased for night. Vehicles were parked and secured. Ammunition was stored in designated areas. Fuel containers were positioned near vehicles for morning refueling operations. Everything was organized and concentrated, optimal conditions for incendiary attack. At 23:38, first drones arrived over compound. Approaching from multiple directions simultaneously, drones descended from 50 meters to 10 meters altitude and navigated to programmed target coordinates. Small size and quiet electric motors meant drones were nearly undetectable. Minimal visual signature, minimal acoustic signature, no thermal signature. Guard on northern perimeter heard faint buzzing sound and observed small object overhead. Before he could alert others or engage with rifle, drone released thermite grenade over tent encampment below. Grenade descended under small parachute to control impact velocity, penetrated tent fabric, and detonated on contact with ground inside tent. Thermite ignited instantly, burning at 3,000 degrees Celsius. Inside tent, 30 sleeping soldiers were awakened by brilliant white light and intense heat. Thermite reaction produces blinding light and thermal radiation, igniting everything combustible within meters. Tent fabric ignited immediately. Sleeping bags ignited. Wooden cots ignited. Soldiers' uniforms ignited. Within 5 seconds, entire tent interior was engulfed in flames, with temperature exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Soldiers attempted evacuation through tent entrances, but fire blocked exits. Some soldiers burned to death trapped inside tents. Others escaped with severe burns covering extensive body areas. Burning soldiers running from tents spread fire to adjacent structures and ignited other soldiers attempting rescue. The fire propagation was rapid and catastrophic. Across compound, 84 drones were delivering thermite grenades simultaneously. Targeting was systematic: tent encampments, vehicle parks, ammunition storage, fuel containers. Every 20 meters across compound, thermite ignited, creating distributed fire pattern impossible to control with available firefighting resources. Tent encampments were devastated. 23 large tents, each housing 20 to 30 soldiers, were targeted. Thermite grenades ignited tents from inside, creating infernos. Soldiers sleeping were burned alive or suffocated from smoke inhalation. Some tents collapsed from fire damage, burying occupants in burning fabric. Soldiers evacuating burned tents emerged with clothing on fire, spreading flames to others nearby. Vehicle parks became secondary disaster. Thermite grenades landed on vehicle roofs, penetrating thin armor and igniting interiors. Vehicles contained combustible materials: upholstery, rubber, fuel in tanks. Thermite ignition created vehicle fires that spread through convective heating and radiant transfer to adjacent vehicles. Within minutes, entire vehicle parks were burning. Ammunition storage was catastrophic. Thermite landed among palletized artillery shells, mortar rounds, small arms ammunition. Initial thermite reaction ignited ammunition, creating progressive detonations. Artillery shells exploded, sending fragmentation across compound. Mortar rounds detonated in sequence, creating continuous explosions. Small arms ammunition cooked off, creating random projectile hazards. The ammunition fires burned for hours with intermittent explosions, preventing firefighting or rescue operations. Fuel storage created massive fires visible from tens of kilometers. Thermite ignited portable fuel containers, creating thousands of liters of burning diesel. Fuel fires spread across ground, creating rivers of flame. Some containers exploded from pressure buildup, scattering burning fuel across wider area. Dense black smoke rose thousands of meters, creating visibility hazard across region. At 23:42, 4 minutes after initial strikes, compound was comprehensively engulfed. Fires covered approximately 97% of compound area. Temperature at ground level in fire zones exceeded 800 degrees Celsius, instantly lethal to unprotected personnel. Smoke was dense and toxic. Combustion products from burning supplies included toxic chemicals, causing immediate respiratory distress. Surviving personnel attempted evacuation from compound. Routes were blocked by fires, smoke caused disorientation, visibility was near zero. Some soldiers became lost in smoke and were overcome by toxic fumes, collapsing unconscious and dying from inhalation. Others were trapped by surrounding fires, unable to find escape routes. Some soldiers attempted running through fire zones, suffering fatal burns during passage. Medical response was impossible. Medical facilities in compound were destroyed by fires. Medical personnel were casualties, killed or injured same as others. Surviving medics had no equipment and couldn't function in fire and smoke environment. Evacuation of wounded required reaching perimeter and moving beyond fire zone. Many wounded couldn't move independently and died where they fell. Firefighting was futile. Thermite fires cannot be extinguished with water. Reaction is self-sustaining, and water actually worsens thermite fires through chemical reactions. Compound had minimal firefighting equipment, few extinguishers, and no organized fire response. Even with adequate equipment, fire spread was too rapid and extensive for suppression. External firefighting response was delayed. Nearest fire department was in village 2 kilometers distant. Response time was 20 minutes from initial alarm. By arrival, compound was total loss with fires burning uncontrolled. Firefighters focused on preventing spread to adjacent areas rather than fighting compound fires. Over following 6 hours, fires gradually diminished as combustible materials were consumed. By 05:30, dawn light revealed devastation. 97% of compound was destroyed. Blackened ground with scattered debris of destroyed equipment. Tent areas were ash fields with remains of tent frames. Vehicle parks were burned hulks. Ammunition storage was cratered wasteland from explosions. Fuel storage was burned ground. Casualty assessment revealed catastrophic losses. 632 confirmed dead from compound population of 1,473. 43% mortality. Deaths were from multiple causes. Burns covering extensive body areas, smoke inhalation causing respiratory failure, trauma from ammunition explosions, suffocation from toxic combustion products. Burn casualties were particularly horrific. 193 personnel died from burns covering over 60% of body area. Injuries incompatible with survival, even with immediate advanced medical treatment. Another 212 died from burns between 30 and 60%. Potentially survivable injuries, but without medical facilities, most died from shock, infection, or organ failure over hours or days following burns. Smoke inhalation killed 147 personnel. Toxic fumes from burning supplies included carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, various chemical compounds. Inhalation caused rapid unconsciousness, followed by respiratory arrest. Many victims appeared physically uninjured externally, but died from internal lung damage and systemic poisoning. 80 deaths resulted from ammunition explosions, fragmentation injuries, blast trauma, crushing under collapsed structures. These deaths were instantaneous, with bodies severely damaged by explosive effects. 473 survivors required hospitalization for severe burn injuries. Burn treatment requires specialized facilities, burn centers with sterile environments, skin graft capabilities, hyperbaric chambers, specialized nursing. Local medical facilities were completely overwhelmed. Patients required evacuation to distant hospitals, creating logistics nightmare. Some patients died during evacuation due to inadequate stabilization before transport. Burn victims face agonizing treatment lasting months or years. Initial debridement removes dead tissue, extremely painful procedure requiring anesthesia. Skin grafts harvest healthy skin from unburned areas to cover burned zones. Multiple surgeries over weeks. Infection prevention requires isolation in sterile environments. Pain management requires continuous medications. Physical therapy prevents contractures as burns heal. Survivors with severe burns face lifetime disabilities and disfigurement. Burns covering hands cause permanent loss of dexterity. Scarring prevents normal finger movement. Facial burns cause disfigurement affecting social interactions and employment. Burns covering joints cause contractures limiting mobility. Psychological trauma from burns includes depression, anxiety, PTSD requiring ongoing mental health treatment. 368 personnel survived with minor injuries, mostly smoke inhalation requiring supplemental oxygen. Minor burns treated as outpatients, trauma from falls or collisions during evacuation. These survivors witnessed horrific scenes creating psychological trauma despite surviving physically intact. Equipment and supply losses totaled $57 million. 200 vehicles destroyed, trucks, armored personnel carriers, command vehicles. 400 tons ammunition destroyed, artillery shells, mortar rounds, small arms. 120 tons supplies destroyed, food, equipment, uniforms, spare parts, fuel storage destroyed, 40,000 liters. The supplies represented months of accumulation eliminated overnight. Tactical impact was cancellation of offensive operation, scheduled within 72 hours. Brigade designated for operation lost critical supplies and suffered massive personnel casualties. Operation was indefinitely postponed, requiring months of reconstitution and resupply. Strategic initiative was lost as Ukrainian forces exploited delay to strengthen defenses. Russian analysis identified catastrophic security failures. Air defense was grossly inadequate. 2 portable missiles couldn't defend against drone swarm. Dispersal was insufficient. Concentrating personnel and supplies created vulnerability. Fire prevention was non-existent. No sprinkler systems, limited extinguishers, flammable tent construction. Detection was absent. No radar or surveillance capable of identifying small drones. Ukrainian execution demonstrated devastating effectiveness of drone swarm incendiary tactics. 84 drones costing approximately $100,000 total, destroyed $57 million in supplies, and killed 632 personnel. Cost-benefit ratio was over 500 to 1. Psychological impact exceeded physical damage. Survivors and observers were traumatized by mass burn casualties, creating fear of similar attacks. International controversy erupted over use of incendiary weapons, causing mass burn casualties. Some observers condemned attack as creating unnecessary suffering through burns rather than using conventional explosives, causing quicker deaths. Ukrainian position emphasized military necessity. Compound was legitimate target, incendiary effects were militarily effective, and laws of war permit incendiary weapons against military targets. The numbers define incendiary catastrophe. 1,473 personnel in compound, 632 dead, 473 severely burned, 38 minutes from first fire to compound consumed, 84 drones, 67 kilograms thermite, 57 million destroyed, offensive cancelled. This is modern warfare, where drone swarms deliver devastation, where thermite creates unstoppable fires, where 38 minutes transforms staging area into burn ward and morgue. Welcome to warfare, where small drones carry terrible weapons, where fire spreads faster than escape, where 38 minutes of burning creates casualties measured in hundreds.